bubble drugs or because he wasn't like that.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming to this production of the Red-Throated League performing Sherlock Holmes and the Adventure of the Missing Heiress. I would like to ask you all right now, please, to turn your cell phones to silent. Turn your calendars back to 1947. And turn your imaginations to when it was always 1895.
The Red-Throated League and the makers of Clippercraft clothes for men and 924 leading retail stores from coast to coast present the world's most famous detective, Sherlock Holmes. And so once again, we find ourselves in Dr. Watson's cheerful firelit study. Outside, a cutting October wind scurries the brittle leaves, but inside, all snug and cozy with his feet on the well-polished fender, sits our favorite host and storyteller.
Well, thank you, Mr. Heiress, thank you.
And which of Holmes' fabulous adventures are we to have tonight, sir?
Well, tonight it's the case of the missing heiress, Canadian heiress, to be exact, pert and pretty as a picture, but with a mind of her own. I'll never forget her father's expression when he discovered the compromising situation that well, there I go again, getting myself out of order again. Don't look so worried, Mr. Heiress. I haven't forgotten. This is where we say a few kind words on behalf of a very generous sponsor.
Fair enough, Dr. Watson. And speaking of finery, I'd like to say a bit on that subject, too. Finery, masculine style bags. Clippercraft clothes are just about as fine as can be made, and so modestly priced. Even Mr. Holmes would be stumped as to how it's done. But it's elementary, Dr. Watson. It's the famous Clippercraft plan, wherein 924 leading stores from coast to coast concentrate on their buying power, assuring you of great savings in manufacturing and distribution costs. As a result, you get the benefit of group buying, plus the friendly, personal attention you expect at your own local independent store. Clippercraft's extraordinary value is obvious once you've ordered. For where else indeed can you find expensive-looking suits like Clippercraft's at only $30 and $40? There are a few deluxe models too at $43.75. Top coats and overcoats are only $30 to $40, and sports jackets are only $34. Yes, solving your clothes problem is easy this fall. Just take this clue. Compare Clippercraft with clothes selling for many dollars more.
Now, Mr. Heiress, to our story, the case of the missing heiress. Put your boots on that fender and make yourself comfortable.
A perfect combination of crackling fire to warm one's feet and a hair-raising adventure to chill one's spine.
Sounds rather like one of those confounded hot and cold shower baths that are the curse of this modern age. In the good old Baker Street days, one made one's daily ablutions in a tin tub. It was filled with a pair of steaming hot warm water jugs.
One got in and out as fast as possible, dread freezing to death, eh, Dr. Watson?
Only in the wintertime, Mr. Heiress. Only in the wintertime. I remember one bright July afternoon in the year... Well, never mind. Never mind. It was before you were out of your cradle. I was splashing about in my morning tub.
I thought you said it was afternoon.
Well, one shares lodgings and adventures with the great Sherlock Holmes. One frequently took one's morning tub in the afternoon, sometimes in the evening. Where was I?
Splashing around in your morning tub in mid-afternoon.
Yes, as a matter of accuracy, I was just removing the soap from the back of the ears and giving a not very inspired rendition of a current comic opera hit when Holmes burst in rather unceremoniously. A wandering minstrel I, a thing of shreds and patches, of ballads, songs, and snatches.
For heaven's sake, Watson, stop that caterwauling and throw on a bathrobe. We're about to have a caller, and I'm sure it means another case.
Why should I interrupt my back? You are quite capable of handling the first stages of any case all by yourself, Holmes.
Not when it concerns a lady in hysterics and a court train. You're much better than I at managing female agitation.
Holmes, what are you raving about?
An elegant carriage has just galloped up to our curbstone, and without waiting for the footman to alight from the box and assist her, a middle-aged creature in full court regalia, complete to the feathers in her hair, bursts out into the street and is even now pulling our front doorbell out by the roots. Aha! Mrs. Hudson has let her in. She's coming up the stairs. Now, will you throw on a bathrobe and come out and protect me?
Certainly not.
Very well, then. I shall be obliged to usher her in here.
No! Great Scott, wait! Oh, I'm coming. Good Lord, look at me, dripping all over the carpet, a fine way to treat a lady.
Don't worry. Unless I'm greatly mistaken, she's too upset to notice. Here, tie the cord around your middle, and you're trying to put your slippers on the wrong feet.
But confound it, I heard.
Come in!
Mr. Holmes! Oh, Mr. Holmes! Thank heavens I find you at home.
Why, Lady Meiser.
Oh, Dr. Watson, delighted to see you. Could you give me a glass of sherry, or a sedative, or something? Oh, this is terrible. I'm ruined. And the poor girl. Oh, Mr. Holmes, you must find her. You must.
Of course, Lady Maynooth. But first, perhaps you'd better tell us the name of this damsel in distress and inform us just what difficulty she seems to be in.
Well, that's just it. I haven't the remotest idea. Oh, I don't mean I don't know her name. It's Elizabeth. Elizabeth Bascom.
Well, not Miss Lizzie Bascom. You're the only child of old Hellfire Bascom, Canadian Copper King.
That's right, Dr. Watson.
Quite the belle of the season, I gather.
Yes, Elizabeth has certainly been popular. Not that it's made the slightest impression on her.
But yes, perhaps that explains her popularity.
That and her father's millions. But why are you so concerned about Miss Elizabeth Bascom, Lady Maynooth?
It has been my responsibility to sponsor the young lady through her first London season, to see that she makes the proper social connections. And, well, her father is bound and determined that she shall marry into the nobility.
I had no idea that George Bascom, more often referred to as Hellfire, was one of your acquaintances, Lady Maynooth.
To be quite frank, I do feel I had best be frank with you, Mr. Holmes. I had never set eyes on Elizabeth's father. But, well, a mutual friend, knowing that he was anxious to have her received in the best circles, and also knowing that my own financial position has not been too secure, but I was, shall we say, persuaded to take Elizabeth under my wing.
I hope you made a profitable arrangement.
I did, Mr. Holmes, but I've earned it, every penny.
Do you mean to say that the lady is uncouth in spite of her great beauty?
No, Dr. Watson, the truth forces me to admit that Elizabeth is really quite presentable and even lovable when not crossed.
But when she is crossed, she takes after her father?
Exactly. She insists on going for solitary walks, completely unchaperoned. She will strike up an acquaintance with the most unlikely people.
Democratic, Holmes?
It might be considered democratic in an ordinary female, but where a young woman of Miss Bascom's wealth is concerned, it's rather dangerous.
How true. We've been receiving, well, not exactly threats, but certainly crank letters ever since it became known that Elizabeth had come to stay with me. But Elizabeth absolutely refuses to pay heed to her own danger. She says she's been handling situations of that sort all her life, and she refuses to become perturbed about it at this late date. And now it's happened.
What has?
Well, that is, I finally persuaded her to take an interest in young Lord Beaverbrook, a very suitable match in every way. In fact, her father is arriving on the next boat in order to announce the engagement.
Well, surely that's nothing to be concerned about.
Yes, but what is he going to do when he finds out his daughter has been abducted?
Abducted? What? Abductors?
This note was pinned to the carriage seat when I returned and found Elizabeth gone.
I I gather from your costume, Lady Maynooth, that you were on your way to Buckingham Palace.
Yes, Mr. Holmes. After considerable manoeuvring, I had arranged to have Miss Baskerville received to the court. It took a bit of doing, and I admit I expected trouble with Elizabeth. However, she fell in with the plan with quite a show of alacrity, even standing patiently for endless fittings of a train and taking lessons in how to make a court bow.
I've always wondered how one managed that.
Don't interrupt, Watson. Go on, Lady Maynooth. Today, I take it, was the day?
Yes, and more perfect weather one couldn't have wished for. And I must say, Elizabeth seemed to be in high spirits. We were well prepared with the usual hamper of wine and sandwiches and cake. You know, that interminable wait in St. James's Court.
Well, I've always thought that the sight of the ladies in their full regalia on the way to a court function is one of the greatest sights of London.
Elizabeth seemed to share your opinion, Dr. Watson. At any rate, she seemed in unusually high spirits as the other carriages crowded around us.
What fun, Lady Maynooth! It's even more exciting than a regatta! All the street musicians and the crowds passing on the sidewalk as if we were a parade, all waving and cheering and calling to us.
There she goes! That's Lizzie Bascom! Boy, she's the prettiest one here! Hello, Lizzie!
Elizabeth, my dear, one doesn't believe it. It's not done.
I'm sorry.
Have your flowers with a napkin, my dear. The sun is really becoming rather oppressive.
If you ask me, it's darn hot.
Hurrah for the beautiful Lizzie!
Now, Elizabeth, you mustn't smile back. It only encourages them.
But why shouldn't I smile? I'm so happy.
Just control yourself another moment, dear, and we'll be inside the gates with a crowd can't follow us.
Oh, then we're nearly there.
Heavens no, it takes ages, even after we're in the courtyard. Oh yes, here we go. Ah, that's better. Now, let's see what's on my luncheon hamper. I'll admit I'm half starved.
Oh, no. Let's wait. I'm still so excited. Oh, Lady Maynooth, look. Who's that handsome man walking among the carriages and sticking his head into some of them?
Oh dear, I wish he wouldn't. His mother would be so put out if she knew he were out here, but they will do it, all the boys. They say it's much more fun than it is inside.
Oh, Lady Maynooth, he's coming this way. Oh, he's going to stop.
Well, so this is the carriage that has been causing all the commotion. And no wonder.
Hello yourself.
Oh, that's refreshing. So this is the beautiful Lizzie who was sent to town by its ears. Lady Maynooth, I didn't notice you at first. Would you, by chance, have any smelling salts? The Dowager Justice of the Key is rather wonky as I passed by her barouche. I wonder if you'd come and take a look at her?
Oh, why, of course, certainly. Let's see, where did I put the smelling salts?
In your reticule, Lady Maynooth.
Oh, yes, of course. I'll be right back. And Elizabeth,
Yes, Lady Maynooth?
if that gentleman should return, be sure you address him as Your Highness. And that, Mr. Holmes, was the last I saw of Elizabeth Bascom. She was abducted in broad daylight, right there in the courtyard of Buckingham Palace.
You surely don't think it was done by a prince of the blood royal? They've been known to pull some rather spectacular pranks.
No member of the House of Hanover, Dr. Watson, would write this note, which was pinned to the cushions of the seat directly behind the box.
May I see, Lady Maynooth?
Of course, Mr. Holmes.
Yes, the whole affair was undoubtedly planned in advance.
What makes you say that, Holmes?
The words are printed in ink, large, bold lettering, and the paper has been folded. Furthermore, there is a rather carefully executed dust palm print in the lower left-hand corner.
But what is the message? What does the note say?
The words of a communication of this sort are always the least enlightening part of the epistle, Watson. But just to satisfy your curiosity, I'll read them to you.
How very kind.
We have kidnapped Lizzie. If you know what's good for her, don't tell the cops. Signed, the Black Hand.
Aha! A band of American cutthroats. Words kidnapped, cops are dead giveaway. I've heard of these Black Hand gangs.
Oh dear.
We can only hope that her father will arrive in time to pay for any ransom demands.
Oh, Mr. Holmes.
Yes, we may be dealing with a band of cutthroats and desperados, but let's not jump to any conclusions, Watson, until we have examined the scene of the crime.
You mean you expect to find clues in all that turmoil in the courtyard of Buckingham Palace?
No, Watson. The scene of the crime is much closer than that. It is, in fact, drawn up to our curb. I allude, of course, to Lady Maynooth's carriage.
I see what you mean. I hadn't thought of that. Well, what are we waiting for?
For you to go and put on some trousers, Watson. Handsome horses you have, Lady Maynooth.
Thank you. This is Horace, Mr. Holmes. Horace has been our footman for over 50 years.
And boy, and that's the truth.
A record to be proud of, Horace, in these troubled times.
Eh?
He's a little deaf, Mr. Holmes. It's his age.
I said, you're a fine record, Horace.
I have that.
If you'll open the door, please, Horace. Mr. Holmes is a detective. He'd like to inspect the carriage.
Oh, now, Mr. Holmes' mum. Everybody knows Mr. Sherlock Holmes.
Horace, when did you first become aware that Miss Bascom was not in the carriage?
Oh, when your ladyship come back and found your note.
You didn't hear or see anything unusual before that?
I did not. Henry, he's our coachman. He come off and helped Lord Bruce's man who was having trouble with his horses. And I had my hands full holding our horses, but I handled them.
Stout fellow, Horace. I'm Horace.
Besides which, I'm a bit deaf. Not that you can notice, but it keeps me from hearing.
I'm afraid Horace is but a broken reed in this affair.
What's that?
I said, thank you, Horace. Well, let's have a look inside the carriage. Give me my magnifying glass, Watson. Interesting. Very interesting.
What have you found, Holmes? Bloodstains?
On the contrary, there is not the slightest indication of a struggle. Either Miss Bascom left the carriage of her own free will, or she was lured out of it by someone she considered a friend. Very significant. Very.
Significant, Holmes, but hardly helpful.
Yes, here's her parasol, neatly furled. Surely if she'd been attacked, she'd have attempted to use it as a weapon. And the luncheon hamper, neatly placed in the corner. Open the lid, Watson.
Very well. Hello.
What's up?
The silly thing is empty, not one crumb left.
Oh, blackguards! They not only abducted my ward, they stole my lunch as well! That pancake hadn't even been cut into!
The scoundrels! Well, Holmes, I'm afraid that we have really drawn rather a blank. No clues at all.
Not so fast, Watson. There is a long thread of heavy silk. Lady Maynooth, has Miss Lizzie by any chance a garment with blue fringe in her wardrobe?
Yes, of course, the pelerine that goes over a puce walking suit. What has that to do with the case? She was wearing full-court regalia when she was abducted.
That's what makes it so preposterous, really. You couldn't possibly kidnap a lady in that attire.
No van or lorry is permitted in Buckingham Palace courtyard.
You are both correct. Hello, here's something in the side pocket of the hamper.
Why, that's Elizabeth's Baedeker, her guidebook. She was always sneaking off by herself with that under her arm. From the number of times it happened, she must have visited all the sights of London.
Not all, Lady Maynooth. I fancy Miss Elizabeth rather specialized in the British Museum.
How do you arrive at that conclusion?
The rest of the volume is rather stiff, showing very few of the pages have been read. But notice how readily the book opens at the portion describing the British Museum. And here, the paragraphs describing the famous Elgin marbles. That page is decidedly dog-eared.
The Elgin marbles? Good heavens, I had no idea this was a connoisseur in art.
I fancy Elizabeth is a connoisseur of many things of which you had no idea, Lady Maynooth.
Oh dear, what do we do now? I suppose we'd better consult Scotland Yard.
I rather fancy that a certain Mr. Percy Smithers will prove more helpful in this matter. I suggest that Watson and I pay him a visit.
Percy Smithers? Who in thunder is he?
The famous archaeologist and authority on Greek and Roman relics. He is also curator of the Elgin marbles. Here we are, Watson, the British Museum. Imposing, if somewhat moth-eaten old mausoleum, eh, what?
Oh, you even pointed out to me as if I'd never laid eyes on it before. I had an uncle whose idea of entertaining his various visiting nephews was to trail them throughout the British Museum.
Open the door, Watson.
I can't. It's stuck. Oh, never mind. Here comes an attendant. Say, God, the entrance seems to be a bit bulky. We can't get it open, don't you know?
And why would you? It's locked up for the night. Closing time was 20 minutes ago.
Well, I guess we won't get to see the marbles today, huh, Holmes?
I'm not particularly interested in the marbles, Watson. Guard, can you tell me if Mr. Smithers, curator Percy Smithers, is still on the premises?
Oh no, sir. He's gone home.
You saw him leave?
He always leaves 5 minutes before closing time.
I don't suppose you can give us his home address.
I can do better than that, sir. There it be over there. First house across the quadrangle.
The one with the bay window?
That's right.
Thank you. Come along, Watson.
Do you know this fellow Smithers, Holmes?
Only slightly, Watson. I've met him at the Diogenes Club from time to time when I've gone there to see my brother Mycroft. Like all the rest of the members, he's what you might call taciturn.
Grumpy old professor type, I take it.
Professorial and grumpy, I grant you, but he is certainly not old. In fact, Mr. Percy Smithers looks not unlike the Greek statues he's such an authority on. Only with more clothing, of course.
Yeah, I remember that there was many elderly ladies who got up a petition demanding that drapers be put on the marbles when they first went on exhibit. Ridiculous. They're fine just as they are.
Then you've seen the Elgin marbles?
Oh, many times.
You recall the statue of Perseus?
Perfectly.
Could you describe his attitude?
Well, I can do better than that. I can duplicate it. He's standing somewhat like this.
Not bad, except the positions of the left and right arms should be reversed.
Is your friend took a fit, sir?
Certainly not. I was just explaining. Stop following us.
I wasn't following you, sir. I was just going home to his supper.
Bucket.
Well, here we are at Mr. Smithers' store. Ring the bell, Watson. That's a good fellow.
Always giving orders. I still don't understand what information you expect to gather from a curator of the British Museum about a missing Canadian heiress.
You never know, Watson. You never know.
Aye, and what might you be wanting?
We've come to see Mr. Smithers, Mr. Percy Smithers.
Well, you can't see him.
I'm sorry to disturb him if he's having a supper, but this matter is rather urgent.
You can't see him because he's not come home. As for his supper, it's been burnt to a crisp waiting for him. And a fine trout it was too, that he ordered special.
What a pity. Perhaps you could tell me if a young lady in a blue and pink walking suit has called on Mr. Smithers lately?
Certainly not. Mr. Smithers is a respectable man, and one of the shyest I ever did see besides.
Once again, we draw a blank. This case seems to lead nowhere but down blind alleys.
On the contrary, Watson, the fact that Mr. Smithers did not come home for his supper is decidedly revealing.
You don't think he's been forcibly kidnapped, too? By the same outfit that abducted Miss Baxcombe?
No, I don't think there's any indications of kidnapping. At least, I doubt that any force was used.
Of course! How stupid I've been. Mr. Smithers and Miss Bascom have eloped.
Watson, the incurable romanticist. No, Watson. A bachelor, myself excepted, of course, might conceivably change his mind, but no ardent lover would order trout, a single trout, for supper on the day on which he expected to run off with his inamorata.
Well, but where does that get us? Get us now?
Whatever detained Percival Smithers was unexpected, entirely unexpected. Come, let's go home before our supper has been burned to a crisp.
Holmes, how could you possibly think of food when you haven't rescued Miss Bascom from heaven knows what sort of danger?
Whatever danger Miss Lizzie is in, I rather imagine she enjoys it. Yes, there's nothing further we can do until tomorrow at 8:30.
Why 8:30?
That is the time they unbar the entrance to the British Museum. Yes, we shall be waiting at 8:22.
When you note the low prices of Clippercraft clothes, you're apt to be puzzled. How do they do it? You can say, well, the solution's no mystery at all, once you know the facts. What makes them great values is the Clippercraft plan, concentrating the buying power of 924 leading stores across the nation. Yes, remember that you buy these famous clothes at your favorite local store, where you're treated as a person, not just another number on a sales check. These days, practically everything you buy costs more, but not so with Clippercraft. You can select your fall Clippercraft suit at only $35 and $40, with a few special numbers at $43.75. Clippercraft top coats and overcoats, too, are only $30 to $40. Sports jackets, but $24. Selling inexpensive clothes at inexpensive prices. It's the nation's finest independent stores is the great big idea behind the Clippercraft plan. That's why men who know insist on Clippercraft clothes. So be sure to visit the Clippercraft store in your city.
345 West Kellogg Boulevard, St. Paul, Minnesota.
That is the store where courteous and friendly service are always yours. The store that is proud to add its fine name to that of Clippercraft clothes in the label of your suit, top coat, sport jacket, and overcoat. Remember, not every pattern is always available in your size. Keep on trying. It will pay you to wait for Clippercraft clothes.
Well, it's 8:25, Holmes. Another 5 minutes and we shall know if your guess is right.
I never guess, Watson.
Holmes, isn't that Lady Manto's carriage coming down the street at a full gallop?
Yes, Mrs. Hudson must have told her she would find us here. Yes, here she comes, like a ship under full sail.
Well, who's that rather red-faced little man with her?
I rather imagine Papa Bascom has arrived.
That rat, that blasted, that burns you! So, you're Sherlock Holmes. Why in blazes haven't you found my daughter?
I was right, Watson. It is Hellfire Bascom. Good morning, Lady Maynooth.
Oh, Mr. Holmes, the most horrible news, the most horrible, horrible news.
Oh, they haven't found a body.
No. First of all, when I returned home last evening, my butler informed me that all the sandwiches, the wine, and the cake had been found in the jardiniere of my best aspie bistro. The cook is so insulted, she's threatened to leave.
Yes, I rather suspected that hamper held something more interesting than food.
That's not all. Tell him the worst.
Well, this morning, before I'd even had time to have my morning tea, Lord Brunsey's man returned Elizabeth's court gown and feathers. They'd been found in his carriage.
What? The scout!
Oh, he wasn't in it at the time. He was still at the reception when his coachman delivered the dress.
But this makes matters even worse. The poor girl was abducted. And he goes.
Her reputation will be ruined.
Blast her reputation, ma'am! She'll capture Death Gold.
Calm yourself, Mr. Bascom. I think I may be able to return your daughter with remarkably intact. Yes, they're opening the doors now. If you will follow me.
Into the British Museum?
Calm yourself, Mr. Bastion. A little culture is quite harmless, I assure you. Ah, the guard. I believe you are about to unlock the hall to the Elgin Marbles. Mind if we watch?
I'm not going to give you any amusement. I've been locking it 8 years now, and it's never been what you might call fascinating.
Today, I think you may be in for a surprise.
Seeing is believing. Well, it's about time. Where the devil were you last night? Didn't you hear me shouting?
Professor Smithers, you've been locked in with the marble bin all night long?
And one that wasn't marble.
Lizzie! What in thunder are you doing here?
Yes, and wearing the puce and blue walking suit.
Papa! Well, what do you know? Papa, I want you to meet Mr. Percy Smithers, the famous scientist, and your future son-in-law.
Scientist? I wouldn't let you marry a scientist if he were the last man on earth!
But Papa, we've been locked up together all night. Think of my reputation.
Why, you scoundrel! You planned all this! You lured my innocent little girl into a trap!
Oh, Papa, don't be silly. I was the one that trapped Percy. I planned it all. I picked yesterday because all the crowds would be at Buckingham Palace and the museum would be empty.
You packed your walking suit in the food hamper, changed in Lord Munsey's carriage, and headed for the British Museum.
The hardest part was fascinating Percy so he wouldn't notice it was closing time. As a matter of fact, it wasn't as hard as I expected. You see, I suspected Percy, well, liked me, but I couldn't get him to propose.
She's too confounded rich.
Look here, my boy. You'll marry her now, even if I have to go out and get my own shotgun.
All right. I rather wanted to anyway, but only on one condition.
What's that?
She has to promise to live with you. My baby.
Darling,
That was all she wanted to know.
And did Lizzie live within her husband's income, Dr. Watson?
Oh, more or less, at least, if Mama gave her presents from time to time. Percy never did know it.
How did Elizabeth and her archaeologist get along?
Oh, splendidly. You see, Hellfire, Master, backed several expeditions for the British Museum. Curiously enough, Percival Smithers headed them. Did some rather splendid work, too. So when he was finally knighted, Lizzie became Lady Elizabeth. Everyone said she more than earned that title.
And now, Dr. Watson, how about a hint about next week's Heiress?
Well, next week is a hair raiser, Mr. Harris, in more ways than one. It concerns a gentleman who had an unusually florid, I might say even crimson, head of hair, and how he was hired for a decidedly curious job just on that account. Fortunately, he reported that fact to Holmes, who subsequently prevented one of the most daring crimes in banking history.
Of course, it is the famous adventure of the Red-Headed League.
How did you guess, Mr. Harris? How did you ever guess?
The Red-Throated League and the makers of Clippercraft clothes and 924 leading retail stores from coast to coast have brought you another in the new series of broadcasts featuring the world's most famous detective, Sherlock Holmes. Sherlock Holmes was originally produced and directed by Basil Dufresne, and our stories are written by Edith Meiser with special music by Albert Berman. Holmes, played by John Stanley, and Dr. Watson by Alfred Shirley in the original production. 200 Fifth Avenue, New York City. Be sure to listen next week to Sherlock Holmes and the Adventure of the Red-Headed League, broadcast right here on
KRTL.
If you wish to attend these Sherlock Holmes broadcasts, see your local Clippercraft dealer or any member of the Norwegian Explorers of Minnesota, and they will tell you how to obtain tickets. This is the Mutual Broadcasting System.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much for joining us this afternoon. I have a favor to ask. We have more people who are looking to come in for the next show, so if you could please, and the actors only have a very short turnaround before the next show, so if you could please clear the space. If you're expected to meet someone here, wave, get their attention, and tell them you meet them out. Thank you so much. And if you do not wish to keep your program, if you leave it on the table by the door, I was not expecting this wonderful turnout, and so didn't have quite enough. Thank you all very much. Thank you so much.
Oh, yeah.